with you to do. So
It was me.
that's fine. So, we continue to evolve too. And I've always said that training and implementation is not one size fits all. Your libraries are not the same. They're all unique on their place in a very, very good way. So that we're continuing to review how we do training, how we do implementation. If you have feedback as either a mentor library or a library that's recently come on yourself, please feel free to share that with me, with Felecia, whoever you happen to be on the phone with. Because you will see, as our theme here is we all work together. We've taken away any silos there. So while we have our primary responsibilities, we do very much one another. Next slide.
Project a little, please.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. This is us, as I was talking about the teams that work together. These are the primary folks responsible for working with migrations and training. You'll see Rogan that I was talking about there. Galen is, you'll see he's the implementation manager. So all implementation decisions run through Galen. All product and training decisions will run through me. But here's the team of all of us working together to make migrations happen. You've seen these folks already on the screen, but this is a set of 5 that when we start talking about scheduling and who's going to do what, and that we really start our kickoff calls. If you've ever been on one of those, there are a lot of people on there from Equinox. You're like, why is it going to take all these people? Because it takes all these people. That's fine. And Felecia will sit on those. I kind of wish Felecia was right here because Felecia is very much a part of kicking off these. Felecia makes sure that the contracts say very clearly what the services are going to be. So without Felecia making sure that all of that is communicated to us through kickoff, we wouldn't really have our marching orders about what needs to happen. So Felecia, I'm adding you to this next time you do it. So next screen. This is the training team. There's me and Lena. I will say that there is a third person who's not listed here that we've added on. We have a program assistant. Her name is Allison McThorne. So if you see Allison sitting in on these calls, she's very much helping us do preparation for training materials and documentation review. She's been a wonderful addition to our team to give us a little more capacity so that when we're all doing training for 3 days, then Lena and Allison are still there preparing for the next round. So yes, this is Lena. Lena's been here. I'm standing in front of this. Lena's been there for about a year now. And it feels like a lot longer because we've done a lot, all of those in the last year. So you will find that when you're looking for training, whether it's on-site or remote, and we've developed our on-site training usually comes with a little bit of remote first, because we want to get to know you before we show up. But remote training can be more than just migration. We have a whole series of EDU, which our Clever Equinox EDU, our training series that we do. We do online spotlights, webinars, the difference between a spotlight and webinar. Spotlight's about a little thing. Workshops are about really digging into things. But we have a video library. We record all the trainings that we do and make freely available. So if you're not on our list to sign up for these, to get these notices about our EDU series, I'll make sure that that's included in these slides and that you'll have the opportunity to sign up. And we also do custom training as needed. We can do custom training just about a particular functionality or a single library. We can talk with you about doing consortial training, new feature review, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure that once you come on as a library that you don't feel like training is over, because it's absolutely not over. You've reached that first success, that first milestone. But Evergreen keeps changing, you keep changing, we keep changing. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to provide training. Next. Here are the training resources. The training portal is new. The other 2 things listed there is our resource library. I just said that you can get to our recordings of the various things. We have little short videos about different task-based things in the resource library. The EDU events, this is how you can sign up and see the past EDU events. So the resource library is just kind of on-demand stuff, and the EDU events have been actual recordings. I want to go back to the top there. This training portal, there's a link on there, and these slides will be shared with you. And the training portal was created with implementation materials in mind. But what we found is that we have just this whole wealth of handouts that we're sharing with libraries that are coming in, but we weren't sharing them with the rest of you. So why aren't we sharing them with the rest of you? Because we have dozens and dozens and dozens. At some point we'll hit that 100 mark and I'll celebrate. But we have dozens and dozens and dozens of handouts for all the different modules. They're organized that way. And if we have a moment, when it comes time for Felicia's presentation, I might just sneak in there and show you a little preview of that. Just before we do Aspen, I'll show you the preview of the training portal. It's locked down with password. We do that to protect you and your information as much as anything. Liz is the keeper of the password. So if you want the password, and we're not around there, you can ask me, but if you want the password, ask Liz.
Keep your nights on.
That's right. Be very, very nice. She'll give you the password. That's easy. Okay, so training portal, I'm anxious for you to see that, and we continue to add to it. It's not a static, well, it's static because they're just there, they're not doing anything, they're not. But it's not static in that we're continuing to add materials to that training portal. So we rolled that out this year. We're very excited about it. Because we're making it something that you can see beyond just the libraries that we're interacting with for onboarding. Okay, next slide. We also do consulting. We left that here because this isn't unique to our training team, much like we were talking about support. Depending on what kind of project consulting is, you may get any of the number of us that you saw on that. We also do support slide. And I think we might have that on the next one too. But we've done a variety of consulting projects in the last year. We've talked about a variety of consulting projects you might want to do in the coming year. Some things that are very, very important to us are patron privacy, and we know you share that value as well. So we're always looking for ways to continue to up our security when it comes to patron privacy. We'll often say things like, keep this in mind, data security.
Jennifer, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've lost audio on the remote. Yeah, it looks like the micro, oh, there we go. It had been muted, I think.
Okay, did you see all my hand motions? So I talk with my hands.
I totally saw that.
So you can interpret it. I will very quickly say that I was just talking about consulting, how seriously we take patron privacy and data security. I do want to repeat this. Felecia said that our servers, when she was showing you hosting, are in Georgia. That was on purpose because the founders of our company live in Georgia. And then we want them to be able to get to the servers. Both Mike Rylander and Galen both live within quick driving distance of our servers. So if anything happens physically, hardware, they hop in their car and they go over there. This, while we talk about servers in the cloud and sometimes you outsource maintenance of those, these guys actually get in their car and they go and they check on things. We do have people that provide that kind of service. They're not spending their days working on the servers, but they absolutely are the gatekeepers. So I want you to know they take that very seriously. They're on call all the time. They take turns for data security. A couple other projects we're working on, and we will touch on some of these. We've been looking at permission groups and what that means for a while. One of the things I have said to Diane is, and I'm going to take a moment to say how much I have appreciated you. I want to say that out loud to everybody. You all know Diane is a gem, but I just want to say. Yes. So one of the things we've been working on together, and sadly we haven't finished it, and I'll say it's just a huge, huge project. But we've come a long way understanding what's going on with permissions and being able to articulate that a little better. So, and we will continue to do so, and we will make you proud. We've got other things we're doing. We're looking at whole circulation and whole policy reviews. How many times do you go, this didn't do what it was supposed to do? Well, there are a little jungle of policies out there. So that we help just kind of dig into those. It can be a more formalized project, or it can just be a support ticket that says, can somebody look at this? Which is the point I need to make. Consulting doesn't have to be a formal, hey, let's work out all these details. It can be simply, I've got a question I don't understand. Can you help me understand? A support ticket doesn't have to mean this thing isn't working. A support ticket can be, I just have a question. And if it's something you've talked about library to library, you think, we don't know, just ask Equinox, please do. That's what we're there for. And then I wanted to, and I regret that that's really small. I hope you can see this. I know that Steve sent this around when it happened, but you did a huge patron purge this year, in the last year. You looked at all that old dead weight that was hanging around, just patrons that shouldn't be in your system anymore. 267,468 users purged out of your database this year. Let me say that didn't happen just because you sent a ticket and said, please purge our old people. This happened because we said, okay, what do you call old people? Because that's rude. So then we decided we had to work through what are the parameters. What do you need? What are your state regulations? How long do you need to keep this data? You had to talk library to library to library. You've got a very great structure that you built with your board and then with your committees that you really were just able to get the input that you needed until you were very comfortable going, okay, I'm comfortable with these 267,468 patrons going away. So you approved this. It wasn't just get rid of. But beyond that, you've made this something that's going to be a routine. This was not a one-time data project. You designed what this was going to be, and you said, now make it happen. Like Star Trek, make it so. So it will happen on an annual basis now. January, I think, January. January. So congratulations to you on that. But this is the kind of big data project that we can take on from a consulting point of view too. Okay, next. Okay, this is us. Same us that all work with consulting. It's just nice to say this is, does it look familiar? I know you've seen a lot of slides about us, joking aside, this is kind of your implementation and training team. There may be others that get brought into this. There's a very clear reason why we are the ones that get called on to help with consulting. We look at your data and your policy all the time as we are bringing on new libraries. So primarily, when a consulting project comes in, it'll come into our joint department and we'll talk about what does this look like. There's there are questions? Oh, she's back. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just want to make sure. All right, so it's enough looking at us, but we thank you for your consulting. Development,
So-
I think that.
Did I jump the gun? Because I'm going to come in and talk about development. Development is a really important part of what we do within the Evergreen community and for Missouri Evergreen. So what do we mean when we talk about development? We're talking about creating new features, new enhancements, things that hopefully make Evergreen a better system for everybody who uses it. So in 2023, we did a number of development projects, not specifically for Missouri Evergreen, but in general. One of those was a rewrite of the Evergreen Mark editor. So hopefully it will be a little easier to use and be more accessible. And speaking of accessibility fixes, one of our focuses for the last couple of years has been to make Evergreen more accessible to staff and patrons who use assistive technology. So if they have visual or motor disabilities, then certainly we want to make sure that they can use Evergreen every bit as easily as anyone who does not. We also did refreshes of the interface for reports, acquisitions, link checker, and some other administrative areas. And if you have not seen those refreshes yet, you will in an upcoming upgrade. So you may not have the version that they went into just yet. Moving to the next slide. I want to point out two particular people on our team, Mike Rylander and Jason Etheridge. They were part of the original development team for Evergreen. So when Evergreen ILS was created back in 2002, 3, 4-ish, Mike and Jason helped build it from the ground up. Along with people from the Georgia Public Library Service and the Pines Consortium in Georgia. These guys wrote some of the original software code and continue to contribute to that code. When I tell you that nobody knows Evergreen quite as well as Equinox does, I mean it. These guys have been there from the very beginning. So moving on to the next slide, I want to introduce you to the other people in the development team. Mike and Jason are just part of a larger team that work with community members like you to create those new features and enhancements, fix bugs, and work to make Evergreen a successful ILS. They're really very important to what it is that we do, not just for your consortium, but for the community as a whole. Now, moving on to the next slide, I want to introduce you to some other staff that you may not encounter very often. Lisa Carlucci is our executive director. She keeps us moving in the forward direction and provides leadership for us. Sally Fortin is the special projects coordinator. She works with many of our teams, training and with me in business development. Laura Berry is our communications coordinator. She handles our social media presence, our newsletter, our press releases. So for all those libraries that came on board last year and for the last couple of years, you likely had some contact with Laura to give us a quote, to talk about your experience so that she can put it out on social media or in our press releases. And if you're on our mailing list or follow us on social media at all, and I hope you do, you've definitely had some communication from Laura. Jennifer mentioned Allison Mathern earlier. She is the program assistant and she provides support all over the organization. So she works with everybody in some capacity or another. And me, Felecia, some of you have met me when I was working on the education team. That's how I started at Equinox. So I provided training for many of you when you came on board with Missouri. My primary job now as business development manager is to find new business for Equinox and to make sure that our current clients are taken care of. So part of that role is that I am the account manager for Equinox or for Missouri Evergreen now, and I work closely with Steve to make sure that you have what you need from us. So next slide. So what's coming in 2024? It's another exciting year for Missouri Evergreen. You have new member libraries coming on board, as we talked about with Adair County coming in May. Sarcoxie is coming close behind that. And then the libraries of the Municipal Library Consortium of St. Louis County, they're coming on board later in the year. Next slide. Now, in conjunction with that MLC migration, if all goes according to plan, we'll also be implementing Aspen Discovery for a pilot group of Missouri Evergreen libraries later this year. We're still waiting for the word from the state library about funding for this project, so it's not a 100% done deal yet, but based on what we know right now, we do believe this is going to be a reality. I'll be doing a session about Aspen at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to reserve some of my comments about Aspen until then. But I just wanted to at least bring that up as one of the exciting things we think is going to be coming in towards the end of the year. Now, before wrapping up, I have one more thing to show you. And yes, you can go to that next slide on the but wait, there's more. Next slide. I mentioned before that there is a whole community of Evergreen libraries, developers, individuals out there that help keep Evergreen moving forward. Sharing the software is only part of what the community does. It also supplies the official documentation. So the official manual for how to use Evergreen comes through the community. That's not something that we create ourselves specifically, although we do contribute to it heavily. If you ever have questions about how to do something in Evergreen, then you can go into the manual and see screenshots, and typically there will be some step-by-step instructions on how to do a particular task in Evergreen or get an overview of a feature. You can also see what kind of new features are anticipated for upcoming releases on the development roadmap. So what it does is show you the next version that will be coming out of Evergreen and what the developers, including our developers, are working on to add to the system. Now, some of it will be very technical, may not make all that much sense, but honestly, we are always looking forward to the new things that can happen. And if you're interested in getting involved with the Evergreen community, there are a number of committees and interest groups, such as the cataloging interest group, that is always looking for new members. And so certainly you have a great consortium that you're working with, and there's lots of ways for you to be involved in that. I know there are committees there as well, and they're always looking for people to participate. But the Evergreen community as a whole is also looking for other people to participate in, so we can make the system better and better over the years. So with all of that, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to get to talk to you today about Equinox, about what we do with Missouri Evergreen. I have to say, we are super excited to continue working with you. It's been a real pleasure over the last few years. I had never been to Missouri until you guys came on board with us. And so it was my first opportunity to be there, and to be in some of your libraries has been a real joy. So we hope to continue working with you for the foreseeable future. Now, I know there may be some questions out there, and so Jennifer and I are going to be around to answer them for you. If you want to shout them out, that's good. If you want to put them in chat, we can work on chat as well.
I have a question. So you talked about how you used to not only train, but kind of be in silos. Is that the switch from doing that more integration? Is that something you do across the board for all of your consortia now, or is that just in Missouri Evergreen?
Yes and yes. I say that because some consortia aren't as, let me start over. Yes, some consortia are very much more centralized, and that all their decisions are made top down. Not like yours, you provide a lot more autonomy to your individual libraries. So the approach to training could be very much more, we have to do this in a very specific way. Yours is, let's talk about what your individual library needs. So when we start doing that, that integration was so very important, because we're learning things through kickoff, and we're bringing over the data, we learn about you, and then we learn about you through the training too. If it's something that we're trying to make, and I'm not going to name names for other consortia, but if we've got those that have a very, very, very rigid implementation process, and if they have an onboarding that's very much controlled from a central place, our role is to come in and supplement that. So we come in and we say, here's your data. Now we'll fit our training into you and into your culture. So it's very, we respond to the culture of the consortium. It started with you. To answer your very next question, it started with you. For that very reason, is we found we were learning so much about you. And not to go on and on about this question, I was an implementation project manager before I moved over to the education team. So I worked on both. And while this isn't something we've officially put in any kind of writing about that we're no longer operating this way, it's something that evolved quite naturally. So Rogan and I work so closely together, and now Lena and the others that are working there, we thought there's no way we can just have this handoff without sharing what we know about you. So it's very important that this goes back and forth, and that by the time we get to training, if we learn something in training and you haven't talked about it a month or two ago when you were bringing over data, that's like, oh, we need to rethink data. And so, yeah, I hope that answered it. I'm not really sure. And I feel like it'll continue to do that in a more organized way now that we realize the value of doing that. But it's not just a checkbox. Implementations are not just a series of checklists. They look like a series of checklists because you have to do a lot of, step by step with your data, but it's not. It's more of a series of let's learn about you and then create what you need. This is our cat's mascot. His name is in all of our fun little presentations. His name is Ollie, because we are Equinox OLI, Open Library Initiative. He is Ollie. He wanted to say that.
I have another question.
Felecia Kate has another question.
So we saw all of your beautiful faces over and over again, but all of us know, we are aware that we are not the only consortium, of course, that Equinox works with, and you support other very large consortia throughout the state. How do you manage your time to give all of us the, because we feel like we have very individualized, you know, responses from you all. But I imagine there's other consortia that feel the same way. So how do you do that?
This is a workshop. Yeah. Yes, and we not only work with consortia, we also work with individual standalone libraries too. We have another ILS we support, that Felecia mentioned. So we have co-op clients, so we have to know about the co-op, what's going on in that. By far, Evergreen is the majority of the work that we do for ILS. While we do co-op, we enjoy doing co-op, it's a fun little quirky little, I didn't mean to sound like that, but it just has a different purpose, it's not meant for consortia. Because when we look at the breakdown of our clients, majority is Evergreen. And we're now in Aspen and we're looking at how you work with that, and that means we get to work with Evergreen. It also means that when we look at also our client world, you and one, maybe two other consortia are our largest as far as the number of interactions that we have with you. And the number of new libraries. I said you were the fastest growing. Because you are the fastest growing, that means we're working with you constantly to bring on new libraries. If you have a consortium that's big, but they're not growing, they're not adding new libraries. They don't need our attention like that on a regular basis. What they need is more about, let's streamline our policies, let's do audits, let's make sure that we review any of the new features and how we can implement them. Because then it's a very, they're not bringing new libraries in and you need to communicate to them. So it's a very, very good question, and I would say delicately, but it's also the reason that when we talk about bringing on these new libraries, we say, we need to check our schedules. Because we don't want to just say, yeah, sure, come on and mark, it's what, April 11th now. If you ask us to bring somebody on June 1st, we would go, I don't think so. Not only because it'd be unfair to the library to get them up and ready, but we have a schedule quarter by quarter by quarter, not just our implementation schedule, but our development schedule. So if you decided there was something you wanted to take on a new feature, we're already planning for third quarter development right now. This list of your migration, we have planned out who's working on what for the next through the end of the third quarter too. So it's very much of when we have these conversations with Steve, and when Steve and Felecia have those conversations, they come back to our management team and say, what's on track now? But then we're at the capacity with our support guys, they are fabulous. But it's also the reason you saw it's not just the three of them. Because they'll say, okay, we got 123 tickets last week. True. Or week before, I was at 123 new tickets last week for the three of them that aren't very quick answers. They need to really, so when they get to that point, they'll say things, this might be a training thing, and they'll send it to me and link. This might be something that is just, can you do a quick report server side? It'll go to Jason in front of them. And that's the reason we build that extra capacity. And so while we've got a very clear plan, what do they say that the training and the quality? Because you plan and then plan is changed. We plan quarter by quarter what we think our capacity is. Am I at time?
No, can I add something?
Yes, please do.
So let me come up here. One of the things about our relationship is that ever since I came on board, I have been, well, when I first came on board and took over, I was meeting weekly with our account representative. And she decided she had way too much of me and wanted to scale that back to once every other week. But since then, Felecia has become our account representative, and I meet with her every other week. And those meetings, and Felecia, you can certainly speak to this as well and give your impression of them. But we have this shared document. She puts stuff on it. I put stuff on it. I relay things to you. I come back and relay what I learned from those meetings to the officers and to the executive board. And so there's a constant communication, ongoing communication. I mean, you all know, in the previous life, I lived as a library director, big library. I only talked to our account rep when something was going terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And that's not how it is with Equinox. With Equinox, I have this really good ongoing relationship with our account rep and with other folks in the organization, constantly speaking on your behalf. And so certainly, tell me if you need me to talk with Felecia, but also understand that Felecia and I talk every other week and plan and scheme and figure out new ways that we can do things better.
Well, I also would like to add one more thing to that too. I mean, the question about how do we how are we able to provide services similar to this to other consortia? Well, in truth, the other consortia we work with, every consortium is a little bit different. The vast majority of the other consortia that we work with have a centralized staff that is dedicated to working with that consortium and including most of the time some technical support. So often what we do with them is supply more of a supplemental technical support. If they need to escalate issues to us, then we work with them that way. Missouri Evergreen's a little bit unique in that each one of you has the ability to report to our support team. Because at this point, you don't have anybody that is dedicated to that work for the consortium as a whole. So each one of you may have people on staff who are handling that individually, but right now there is not that at the Missouri Evergreen Consortium level. So that is one big difference, and one reason that we're able to do a lot with a few. As you saw, there's a reason that everybody's repeated there. We are a small but mighty team that all come together as we are needed to in order to meet the needs of the clients that we have.
Hey, guess what? It's me again. So I wanted to mention, and this isn't necessarily Equinox specific, but I did want to mention it while Jennifer was up here in front of everybody, because she had mentioned the communities that are in the larger Evergreen, because of course we have our Missouri Evergreen committees, but we have such great communication, even higher than us. Jennifer herself is the facilitator of the cataloging working group that we have in the larger Evergreen community. I represent Missouri Evergreen, but I'm on the Evergreen Project Board. So, you know, our voice is a part of that community as well. And there are so many different committees and even subcommittees and all of that stuff that I know we're not made of time. And another committee might be like, oh goodness, but being up on that higher, I keep saying higher level, only because this is above Missouri Evergreen, but like the cataloging group, of course, specifically, we have gotten things done. We focus on bugs, or we focus on projects, you know, we have an authority subcommittee that, you know, we're trying to figure out how to make that work better. We can have a voice in this, because I think there's an impression as well that Equinox equals Evergreen. And while that, they don't, you know, like we can say, why doesn't Evergreen do this? Why can't Equinox fix this? Well, they could probably fix it, but it might be a 6-month development project or whatever, or longer. You know, they are our, you know, they help us with littler things, but big things as well, you know. We can have a voice to make change as well, because Evergreen is open source. That all of the maintenance on it is done by people much smarter than me, but I can still say, hey, I really don't like the way this is working. How about some of you say, hey, we don't like how this is working either, and we can get the attention of those coders potentially, you know. I mean, it's not gonna happen overnight, but as you all have probably seen the emails to the larger Evergreen community, they have bug squashing week, so they focus for a whole week. These group of really smart people, they go in and they're like, we need to work on this, and they, so much comes out of those weeks. And so we have the opportunity that we could be present and know what's going on and that kind of thing. And Diane and I probably, and now Steve, you know, we've probably been, as far as our Missouri Evergreen Consortium, we're the ones that are the most you know, we work the most with the Evergreen project at large, but everybody is welcome.
Here. Thank you. Kate, a little bit modest. Kate not only works with the cataloging interest group, she's one of the organizing committee members, which means she helps set the tone and the direction where we're going. I want to thank Kate and Diane again for all that you do. Let me say this, speaking of just how you can help, you don't have to join a committee and come to our meetings. They're recorded if you just want to watch them with a glass of wine. But you are some of the greatest to just, when you send out a message that says add heat, boy, do you add heat to a boat. If you don't have heat, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, ask soon, because you need to be able to do that. It matters when you add heat. It draws that attention to other people want to talk about this and other people want to see change. Thank you.
I think I'm done.
Anybody not paid have a question? She's done a great job, hasn't she? Yeah.
No questions online so far.
No questions online. Well, we are certainly accessible. Say that word, I think Stephanie Leary, our front-end developer, she's working on accessibility projects all the time. We are certainly available to you in a variety of forms. And of course, I'm here all day. If you have questions, please ask me. We're finishing up a little early, I think. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, I can bring up the portal if you'll give me a minute, and I can, the training portal, actually, no, that's probably, let me do that, and it'll take me a minute to get logged in and stuff. We'll do that after lunch, it'll be something really important.
And I could mention that we have talked a lot about putting some of the stuff from the training portal directly into our continuing education portal that we're starting to build out, so. One-stop shop, so yeah, we're ending a little early. The idea is to kind of flip the room, not really flip the room, but to get everything sort of arranged for our next presentation, which I believe is at 10 minutes past. Is that what I told you, Mitch? So we'll give everybody an opportunity. Remember, all the people online, remember that each session has its own Zoom login. So be sure that you go to the agenda, get the new credentials so that you can hear what Jane has to tell us about Courier and Mala. But until then, get coffee refresh, tea refresh, new pastries, socialize, and we'll see everybody back on the other Zoom session soon.
Thanks, Felicia.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, everyone.
Bring up information they can usually think so how would that work? So I brought my laptop.
The next thing.